Hello, and welcome back to Ghost Stories Vietnam.
Before listening to our ghost stories, please don't forget to like and subscribe to Ghost Stories Vietnam to support the channel.
Thank you so much. Wish you all an exciting ghost story listening session.
And today, we continue with ghost stories shared with our channel by a familiar friend. For those of you who have ghost stories you want to send to the channel to be told, you can send them to the Gmail address currently displayed in the description below, everyone. And now, let us begin today's stories.
Today, Ghost Stories Vietnam will send everyone a story about a wasteland with many ghosts in the U Minh Forest, a large mangrove forest in the southwestern region of Vietnam, in Kien, Giang.
This can be considered one of the very large mangrove forests in Vietnam in general, and this forest is also very rare in the world, everyone. Generally speaking, Ghost Stories Vietnam doesn't know about you, but personally, whenever hearing the name U Minh Forest, Ghost Stories Vietnam suddenly feels a bit scared because of its desolation, everyone.
Because along with its pristine, bountiful beauty, it also holds many spiritual mysteries, especially the eerie and mysterious ghost stories inside these forests. Today is such a story. Now, let us begin the story. This story was sent by a young woman who is currently living in Minh district, Kien Giang province. Her area is called the 11th town, which belongs to the Maya Thursday region, a desolate and remote wetland area of the southwestern waters, in Ca Mau. When hearing the place name Maya Thursday, Ghost Stories Vietnam suddenly thinks of a very distant, secluded region because it is located at the very end of the map of Vietnam. And the entire content of this story was experienced firsthand by her own father. She told that during the time over 10 years ago, around 2008 or 2009. At that time, her family fell into the poor household category. Generally speaking, their circumstances were very difficult. Her parents only did hired labor for other people all year round. Their daily work consisted of father and mother going to harvest lua muon, harvesting lua for hire, to earn money to support her younger brother's schooling. Seeing that the rice harvesting job did not make much money, her father also took an extra job at a construction materials store in the 11th town. Not long after starting work there, her father suddenly met with an accident.
On that day, his job was to assist others in pushing cement carts to stack them into piles. At that time, her father was standing behind the pushcart to assist the other person, while there was another man standing on the pushcart to stack the cement up. While standing behind the advancing pushcart, somehow that man lost his grip, and the cart began rolling down the slope. Since her father was standing below, he intentionally tried to dodge the cart. However, because the cart rolled down from the slope too fast, it crushed his foot completely. Even though his father managed to dodge with one leg, the other leg from the ankle to the foot was entirely crushed by the wheels of that cart, so he had to stop working completely and stay at home for a very long period of time. Generally speaking, he stopped working entirely, as he could no longer do it. At this time, hardships multiplied upon hardships. He could no longer go to harvest rice for hire, and he could not go to work either. Therefore, after he lay at home for about several months, Uncle Nam, a neighbor, came over to visit her father. Seeing the situation, Uncle Nam said, "Now that your leg is like this, you can't go to work anywhere. Well, now that your leg is a bit better, come do cam caw, a method of catching fish using fixed fishing rods planted along the riverbanks, with me. Every evening, you and I will go into the forest to plant fishing rods, whatever fish or frogs we catch. The next morning, my wife and your wife will go to the market to sell them to earn money for food. So, think about it, after each morning our wives sell the fish and make a good amount of money, you and I will split it, so we will have money to buy fish, fish sauce, and rice to get by. Leave it at that, and whenever your leg is completely healed, then go do cam caw with me." Because Uncle Nam saw her father's leg was injured, he did not let her father move around much, only requiring him to sit on the suong, a small, elongated wooden boat common in the western region, to plant fishing rods together with him. At this time, the father agreed because there was not much activity, avoiding disturbance to his leg. Then, after his father's leg had completely healed, the two brothers started going out to plant fishing rods together. Every morning around 5 a.m., Uncle Nam at his house had already prepared all the bait and fishing rods, waiting until about 5 p.m. for the two brothers to go into the Yumin forest together to plant fishing rods inside. The place where this friend lived was situated roughly between the lower Yumin forest and the upper Yumin forest. Everyone, she said, this forest still has fresh water, inside which fish and shrimp are very abundant, and the people in her hamlet also specialize in this trade alone. Living in the forest, the father had heard many spiritual stories inside here. However, her father was a very courageous man. He was not afraid of anything at all, so when going to plant fishing rods with Uncle Nam asked him, "Going in here to plant fishing rods with me, are you scared?" The father replied, "Oh, there's nothing to be scared of. I'm not even afraid of devils yet, it's just ghosts." And then, the times going to plant fishing rods with Uncle Nam were very normal, nothing happened. After going to plant fishing rods with Uncle Nam for a period of time, by this time his father's leg had completely healed, though he could no longer perform heavy labor. At that time, he also pondered whether he should return to his old trade, but now this fishing rod planting brought in quite a bit, because in their area fish and shrimp were still very abundant. So after saving up a sum of money, the father separated and no longer went to plant fishing rods with Uncle Nam. After that, he returned to figure out how to make fishing rods himself, look for bait, and bought an old suong boat, stopping going to plant fishing rods with Uncle Nam altogether. Although the father did not share the same gi, a larger wooden boat than a suong, with Uncle Nam, the two brothers still frequently rowed their boats together into the forests to plant fishing rods, because whosever spot it was, that person would check it themselves, no one affected anyone else. And then there was one day, that day the father and Uncle Nam were rowing their boats into the forest to plant fishing rods. At that time, the father happened to look over to the other side. Inside there was a forest area, but the father noticed that no one planted fishing rods in there at all, so he asked Uncle Nam, "Brother Nam, why does no one go into that piece of land to plant fishing rods at all?" At this time, Uncle Nam said, "That area is very eerie, buddy. Those guys who went to plant fishing rods there were constantly spooked by ghosts, so over time no one goes in there at all. If it were a normal person hearing that, they would be terrified and no one would go in there to plant for what?" But her father was different. When he saw no one went in there to plant, he wanted to go in there to plant fishing rods instead, because he thought there would be a lot of fish inside, and at this time he didn't think about being afraid of ghosts or devils at all. Starting the first day turning into that forest area to plant fishing rods, nothing happened. Because no one planted fishing rods in there, fish were very abundant. Whenever he dropped the bait, fish would bite. Then after planting the fishing rods, he brought the fish back for the mother to take to the market to sell. Moving on to the second day, it was also normal, nothing happened, but by the third day, what had to come, came. That night, the father also rode into there to plant fishing rods. That day he planted fishing rods until near dawn before starting to head home. At that time, the fish were still fresh to be brought to the market early in the morning, so by the time he finished gathering all the fish, it was about 4 a.m., and the father began turning the bow of the suong boat around, preparing to row out to paddle home. On the way paddling the suong boat home, the father saw on the water surface a patch of water spinach that was very fresh. The shoots of the water spinach were spreading out looking very delicious. That water spinach brought home to cook sour soup would be excellent. Therefore, the father intended to pull in to pick those bunches of water spinach, so in the morning the mother could bring them to the market to sell too. When the father pulled the suong boat into this water spinach patch to pick the young shoots, he saw the water spinach shoots protruding above the water surface kept swaying back and forth in only one direction. When looking up into the open air, he saw the tree leaves out there were completely still, meaning there was no wind here at all. So why did the water spinach shoots keep swaying back and forth continuously like that? At this time, he knew he was being spooked by ghosts. His time had come, so he rode the Suong boat straight home. He came back and told everyone about the strange story just like that, but to say he was too scared, he wasn't really scared yet. When he told it, Uncle Nam said, "Do you see? I told you, that place, no one goes in without being spooked. Lightly, they get their things hidden, while heavily, they come home with their souls and wits scattered, becoming half crazy like that." But inherently, her father was already courageous. Seeing so many fish, he couldn't bear to abandon it, so during the nights that followed, he still continued to row in there to plant fishing rods again. It wasn't until these later nights that he was spooked very terrifyingly. That night, just like any other day, the father rode into that vacant piece of land to plant fishing rods. At that time, the father was sitting on the bow of the Suong boat preparing to untangle the bait to catch fish. Right next to this boat was an entire row of melaleuca trees. Sitting there huddled, hooking and untangling the bait, continuously focusing his gaze on his fishing rod, the father then heard on those melaleuca trees a rustling sound, just like the wind pushing those trees back and forth. At this time, he didn't pay attention yet. When preparing to extend the fishing rod to plant it into the water, the father saw on the melaleuca row an entire black lump leaping down onto his boat's bow and then leaping straight down into the water. Because this was fresh water, there was a lot of water hyacinth and duckweed floating on the water surface like that. This black lump was very huge. It dropped very fast from the melaleuca row, then dropped onto the bow of the Suong boat, and then dropped into the river. When it dropped onto the water surface, it created a complete empty space right in the middle of the quiet water hyacinth patch, just like it had dived down into the water. Can everyone imagine it? Her father was sitting at the bow of the Suong boat, so the opposite bow would have to tilt upward because her father sitting on this end was heavier. The other head would tilt up. Until that black lump jumped onto the bow at the other end, the position where the father was sitting was tilted backward. At this point, does everyone understand? The meaning is the lump was even heavier than her father. It was very heavy. It dropped onto the boat and then jumped with a splash down into the water. Right after dropping into the water, the entire water hyacinth patch parted into a very large circle. It was lucky that the Suong boat didn't capsize. Only up to this moment did he know fear, so he paddled back home in the middle of the night. Yet you said no one was as brave as her father. After being spooked multiple times like that, the next day he still went into that piece of land to plant fishing rods again. However, because this piece of land was very wide, he avoided the position from the previous day and went deeper inside, so during the subsequent times, he was no longer spooked. Then after a period of time passed, around 2009, at that time in her family's area, such an event occurred. At that period, the family of Ong Ba Sao, Grandpa and Grandma Sao, in the hamlet, this couple was nearly 50 years old. At that time, the husband and wife stood up and went up to the commune to hold a protest rally. Generally speaking, she also heard vaguely that the purpose of this protest rally was to demand the state redistribute forest land to poor people fairly, meaning like here regarding forest land, some people had a lot, some people had very little, and there were even people who had no land at all, so people stood up to demand a protest like that. Although the pieces of land here already had people planting trees on them, everyone, but people still demanded, sort of like demanding fairness. Because at that time she was only in the 5th grade, she didn't know why there was that protest either, so those of you in the 11th town can explain it to everyone. She said that day people went to protest in great numbers, however, only her family did not go, only focusing on working to earn money and also being afraid of confronting the state government, lest if something happened, who would care for one's family? And after that protest, a period of time passed, then the government there also issued an announcement that they would allocate forest land again to those households without land, among which her family was also on the list to apply for forest land allocation. After the commune distributed the announcement like that, they also stated that on the next day, those citizen households allocated forest land had to go to the commune to draw lots to receive their portion of land. Generally speaking, it was a random number draw, Whichever plot of land one hit, one had to accept that plot of land. This meant on the morrow, her father had to go up to the commune to draw lots, drawing randomly to see which portion of land he would receive. But before that day, her father encountered a matter that perhaps throughout his whole life, the father could never forget. That night, just like any other day, her father also paddled his suang boat into that piece of land to plant fishing rods. While sitting and planting fishing rods, the father again heard rustling sounds on the embankment. Looking up, he saw a civet on it. Inside this area, civets appearing was a normal thing. He also saw this civet standing inside there. After a while he saw 2 civets, then there were 3, and after a while an entire pack of dozens, hundreds of them. And the climax was a moment later. The entire piece of land was filled with nothing but civets. At that time, the father didn't think much of it either. He only thought in his stomach that he would return home and retell this story to Uncle Nam so that the next day he and Uncle Nam could go in there to trap these civets. At that time, it was just an initial thought in his mind. His hands were still winding up the fishhooks to prepare to return home. It was about 3 a.m. While rummaging to wind up these fishing rods, the father heard inside the banana bushes more rustling sounds, and the banana shoots kept twisting back and forth like this, while there was no wind or anything. The father's eyes looked up at that banana leaf, and he saw standing on it a child. This boy was about 6 years old. He stood on the banana leaf and kept swaying like this. He wore a brown ababiye shirt, a traditional short-veined, side-slit tunic common in the southern region. With his 2 eyes blood red and wide open, he bared his teeth into a laugh, his standing posture looking as if he was preparing to leap down onto the suang boat. Everyone. At that time, the father suddenly thought, "Oh, this boy is a devil, not just a ghost anymore." Therefore, he gathered all his vital strength, held a knife, and leaped straight onto the bank, into that banana bush to chop down that banana bush and discard it entirely, because the father was also afraid that after seeing it, it would snatch his soul away completely. So he took all his courage to chop down the entire banana tree. He said in his stomach, if while chopping he saw it materialize, he would probably chop it too. But luckily, after chopping the banana tree, this child also vanished. After finishing the chopping, the father also paddled very fast out of the forest edge, paddling straight home. When he had just paddled out of that forest, paddling out into the large river about 5 kilometers away from her house, along the riverbank, local people often set up Kien, a long fishing tool placed along rivers and streams, to catch shrimp and fish, everyone, and they would sleep right there. Hearing the sound of her father paddling his suang boat and paddling hurriedly like that, they called out to ask, "Second brother, what are you doing paddling the boat for dear life like a robber?" After looking closely, the father saw it was an acquaintance, so he pulled in to retell these stories to that person. Because they sat talking, it was nearly 6 a.m. and the father hadn't returned home yet. The mother was also very worried, and at that period how could there be any phones to contact and call each other, so the mother was waiting anxiously, restless at home. After a while, the father rowed the suang boat back home, and the mother asked, "Is there some matter that you came back so late today?" At that time, the father retold the story from last night to her mother, telling it while the father was trembling and stuttering like this, holding a cigarette in his mouth, and the cigarette dropped straight to the ground. After listening, the mother said, "Stop it, old man, in the future don't go in there to plant fishing rods anymore. People have said it repeatedly but you wouldn't listen. Inside there, ghosts and devils have been around for many years. Why do you keep going in there to plant fishing rods all the time?" Then in the end, the father also decided not to go in there to plant fishing rods anymore. But because that morning he came home too late, the mother did not go out to the market to sell fish either. The husband and wife also ate rice and prepared to go up to the commune to draw lots to see which piece of land would be theirs. Generally speaking, preparing to know they would receive land, they were very happy. After going up to the commune and drawing lots right at number 43, their piece of land belonged to Hamlet 27. Upon seeing the location of this piece of land, the father stood frozen completely, because do you know why, everyone? This piece of land was also the exact vacant piece of land where during the previous days, the father had been spooked by ghosts, everyone. However, at this time after knowing the piece of land they had received, the father didn't tell the mother yet, because he was afraid that the mother would be scared. Her mother was terribly afraid. Coming to the day to receive it, because this piece of land was very large, the state divided it into two and gave it to two households. It was also lucky that the father received it first, so he claimed the outer portion of land, while the spot where he had been spooked lay deep inside there. At that time, the whole family was also very happy because they didn't expect that one day their family would receive such a large piece of land. Therefore, father and mother also took advantage to go in there to clear the grass, build a small cottage, and plant crops inside. The first day after receiving this piece of land, the father and mother paddled their suang boat in there to clear grass, because the grass had grown very high. Finishing clearing grass around 5 p.m., the husband and wife brought the suang boat preparing to return home. When preparing to paddle the boat, they saw next to them a tree, a very large tree. Suddenly it uprooted and fell down with a crash. At that time, her mother was also surprised, but the mother only thought that this tree root had been eaten by termites. It was too rotten, so it fell down naturally just like that, not any ghost or devil matter. But at that time, the father noticed it and he already knew. Moving on to the next day, the father and mother continued to go in there to clear grass, but somehow going in there they didn't see the tree from yesterday anymore. It had fallen, but where did it vanish to? No trace was seen at all. At that time, the mother said, why is it so strange, old man? If termites ate it, it should still be here. The tree just fell yesterday, and where did it vanish to? The father said, or was my wife spooked? Over there, how could there be a matter of a tree that is still alive suddenly falling? How could there be such a thing? A tree that is eaten by termites only when that tree has already dried up and died, while this tree is still alive, so why could it fall? Hearing that, the mother was very afraid, so during the days that followed, the mother decided not to go with the father anymore, and the mother stayed at home completely. Seeing that, she also asked her father to be allowed to follow inside there to play, because from before until then she had never gone inside there once, and the father also agreed. The father and daughter carried each other into that piece of land to clear grass. After being carried into the piece of land by her father to play, the father went to clear grass while she walked around to pick mangoes and ambarella to eat for fun, as she couldn't do anything else. Walking around and around for a while, she discovered at the spot of this piece of land a white cement foundation. Because yesterday her parents cleared grass at the other end, they didn't see this cement foundation. Seeing it, she called her father over and said, "Father, I see a white cement foundation, it's so strange." When the father and daughter cleared away the grass, only then did they see clearly that this was a house foundation which she said looked like in the past people lived there. They dismantled this house, but they didn't pull up the pillars. It looked like they only sawed across these pillars rather than pulling the pillars up. Because around this foundation, there were up to 6 pillar stumps. Seeing that, she called her father and said, "Well, Father, why don't we build our house right on this foundation from now on to save the cost of building a foundation?" But the father said the father would build the house at another spot rather than building on this cement foundation, because knowing whose house this was to build on top like that. Generally speaking, it could be that no one knew from when this house came that inside a remote piece of land like this there was a house foundation inside, meaning that person must have lived there a very long time ago. While sitting to rest from exhaustion on that land and looking over at the patch of land on the other side, the father noticed that the embankment over there seemed higher than this side, so the father decided he would build a temporary house on that patch of land. After cutting all the cu tram, a type of wooden stake made from melaleuca trees used to reinforce foundations in construction on weak ground, over there, he built a temporary cottage, with only himself inside. Because her mother and the 2 children had to stay out by the river, at the old house, since her younger brother was still going to school, so they had to stay out there, and the mother was still harvesting rice for hire too. After the father built the house inside there, he lived there alone, Every evening the father would go to plant fishing rods and early in the morning would run out to this old house to hand the fish to the mother for her to bring to the market to sell. But one day passed. That morning the mother didn't see the father bring fish and vegetables out to the market for the mother to sell, so the mother found it strange and said, did this old man suddenly oversleep today or what that he didn't bring the fish out, heavens? The mother thought the father overslept, so she just let him sleep. Around 11 a.m., there was an uncle. This uncle was just a neighbor near the house. The uncle came over to tell the mother, sister second, brother second has fainted inside the temporary hut already. Hearing that, the mother panicked and ran to the Suan boat. Seeing that people had already carried her father to lie on the boat, the father was unconscious, so the mother together with everyone there carried the father to the hospital, carrying him by boat, because there were no roads or anything. When brought to the hospital, they pushed her father into the emergency room. While sitting outside waiting, that uncle related it to the mother. The uncle said, sister second, earlier I ran over to brother second's house to ask for a lime to make fish sauce, but when going over there and calling repeatedly, there was no reply. I entered the house and saw him lying motionless on the hammock, lying halfway as if he was sitting, because his two legs were dangling down to the ground while his neck was twisted to one side like this. I called repeatedly and he didn't answer either, but his body was completely purple and covered in sweat, so I together with two other people supported him down to the boat to carry him over here to ask you to take him to the hospital. Finishing speaking, the mother also thanked those people and they also started to head back, and the mother stayed at the hospital to take care of the father. After that, the doctors diagnosed that her father only had a normal fever, but the mother said the father's fever was very strange. Because when normally a father is very normal, talking for a while then having about a fever, he would lie unconscious again. Her mother also stayed in the hospital for a week to take care of the father. While staying to take care of the sick, there was a lady in the next bed who was also taking care of a sick person inside there, so during that week she observed her father very carefully, and she said to the mother, "Why do I see this gentleman's illness is so strange, having a fever, why is it so strange? Could it be that the gentleman is being tormented by ghosts and devils rather than being sick? Therefore, if you believe in the spiritual, I will lead you to see a master. Consider it as I am doing a good deed because I see the gentleman is so pitiful." Then the mother also believed that woman's words, and that woman led the mother to a master. Arriving at the master's house, the master asked her mother a question like this. He asked, "In your case, if your house had another person come to live, seize your place, and even curse you, what would you think?" Then the master continued, "Why don't you go back and try asking your husband to see what your husband says?" The mother didn't understand anything, so she said, "Master, please speak clearly because I don't understand yet, Master." The master stated it clearly. He said, "Your husband built a house on people's place without asking permission and even cursed people, so people penalized him like that. Now go back and tell your husband to prepare a tray of rice to make an offering to people, dismantle this house, and do not live on this foundation anymore, do you hear? After returning the house to people, the illness will be gone." By the time they returned home, the mother also asked the father. The mother asked, "Did you live in that house and offend someone or what that now you have ended up in such a state?" The father related it, saying that frequently when he lay sleeping, he saw in front of the house door a young man, and this young man frequently chased him out of this house. That person said, "You go to another place, my house, go quickly, do you hear?" Continuously dreaming like that, but the father also ignored it, didn't pay attention to it, and didn't make any offerings to people at all. And one morning, before fainting and going to the hospital, that day the father also went out to check the fishing rods. When returning home from checking the fishing rods, opening the door he saw the pots, pans, and bowls in the house were completely turned upside down, dropping on the ground in a mess like that, while the laundry basin lay way out in the yard. At that time, the father only thought that some young children had played and sabotaged it, because it was a temporary house, without locking doors carefully or anything. When looking around inside the house, he saw the bag of rice and salt had vanished, so the father imagined that some kid had eaten fruit, picked ambarella or guava without salt to dip, so they came in here to take his salt. Seeing his house seen in such a mess, the father was very furious, so he swore. He said, "If I find out which kid came into my house and rummaged like this, if I catch them I will wring their necks and snap their bones to death." After cursing, it was over. He started lying down again, saying to wait a bit, then go make rice to eat. Before he could even make rice, he felt exhausted, lay on the hammock to rest, and became unconscious. After waking up, only then did he see himself lying in the hospital. At this time, precipitously he went over to that house and dismantled the house completely, no longer living in that house. During the time dismantling this house, Ong Sao, Grandpa Sao, in the hamlet walked past and saw it, so he asked, "Your house was just built, why suddenly dismantle it like that, not living there anymore?" Then the father also retold that event to Grandpa Sao. Listening to it, Grandpa Sao only laughed. He said, "Back when I saw you guys building this house, I knew it already, but because I saw you guys had set up all the pillars, it wasn't convenient for me to speak." At this time, he related a story to the father. Grandpa Sao related, "Next to this house foundation there was a grave of a young man. This guy died very young but died a very long time ago. The family had already gathered the bones, but somehow the wandering soul kept lingering there and encountered anyone and spooked them. As for this house foundation, previously it was the house foundation of the old landowner who lived here. Because they were spooked, they moved away. The old landowner in the past built the house there for them to live in to guard their fruit orchard. Then the son of that owner married a wife that year, so this guy let his wife into that house to sleep and guard the orchard at night. While sleeping, suddenly the wife needed to urinate, so she went out to the front of the house to sit there and urinate. At that period there was no electricity, only using kerosene lamps and flashlights. She went out there to urinate and held the flashlight like this, looking across to the opposite bank just about 20 meters away. Seeing over there between two melaleuca trees there was a hammock strung up. On it there was a girl. This woman also saw clearly on that hammock there was a person wearing an entire white outfit sitting and swaying completely along with the hammock. She saw it to the point that she almost wet herself, so she could only go back into the house. When seeing his wife crawling back into the house, the husband also supported his wife up. The wife could no longer speak, but she only pointed over to the other side, and the husband also saw clearly that person sitting and swaying on the hammock on the opposite bank. Right in that night, the husband and wife called their family to pick them up, no longer living in this house at all, and afterward people also dismantled the house and moved away. As for the reason why people didn't pull up the pillars but only sawed across 6 pillars, perhaps everyone doesn't know that area was not a place where citizens lived. It was only pieces of land to plant forests and such. In the middle of that place people built a house inside to guard the orchards and such, rather than having neighbors there. Since after those times, the father and mother also decided to build a house on another piece of land, not living in the area related to that spot anymore. And also from that time until afterward, her entire family no longer encountered any problems at all. Listening up to here, we have also finished a quite terrifying story that occurred at the U Minh forest. Everyone, before ending the story, everyone please don't forget to like and subscribe to Ghost Stories Vietnam to support the channel. As for how you find this story, you can leave a comment below for everyone to know together. And now, let us wait for the next episode of Stories, everyone. Bye bye.